So today I'll be talking about long-term outcomes and post-operative challenges. This is my financial disclosure, but not for this particular presentation. So just I think already Manpreet has explained about the SMILE, which is a safe and effective refractive procedure for correction of myopia and myopic astigmatism. Superior refractive stability compared to other refractive procedure, and also better ocular surface stability and biomechanical strength. As sir said that you may have some difficulty in the initial period, then once you become the best, I think you can do the case very easily. So I'll be talking about the long term outcomes, which is measured in terms of visual acuity and quality of vision. So visual acuity is very important because it's concerned with the patient satisfaction. So according to the couple of studies here shown down here, visual acuity, especially it is improved optical quality both in smaller and larger people condition, because already as Rupal said that optical zone is always larger than in optical zone in LASIK cases. Because of that, normally patient will have a better night vision quality. So coming to the efficacy of SMILE for achieving uncorrected distance visual acuity more than 20/20 at around 6 months, which is ranges between 62 to 90%, and uncorrected distance visual acuity more than 20/46 months varies from 95 to 100%. Of course, in high myopia, almost around 85% at 2 years, and low myopia almost 96 at 1 year. Coming to the safety, number of eyes with unchanged corrected visual acuity after refractive surgery. This is very important. See, 4% of the patient gained more than 2 lines. This is very, very important according to the uh, Kamiya Shimizu. And 27% of the patient gained more than 1 line. And 60% of the patient, whatever they had a preoperative visual acuity, same thing they retained. Probably 8% of the patient lost 1 line because of some difficulty during the procedure. Only 0.5% of the patient lost 2 lines, and 0.5% lost more than 2 lines due to some intraoperative or delayed complication. Coming to the predictability. So here it measure of accuracy of refractive procedure. So predictability of plus or minus of residual error. If you think that in myopias, it is more almost in case of 77 to 100% myopes, it's predictable. Out of myopes, around 78 to 92% in high myopia and 84 to 97% in low myopia. So let me come to the stability. It is depicted as change in the manifest refraction spherical equivalent in postoperative period. So what I feel that the why it is a greater refractive stability, because of couple of factors I believe. One is greater preservation of corneal elasticity, and also there is a reduced inflammation smile in comparison to the. Can you mute? Can other speaker mute? Okay, thank you. So, if you think about in high myopic, the regressions are slightly higher compared to the low and moderate myopia. That is around 0.2 to 0.36 diopter. So, coming to the visual recovery time, because it may be delayed due to interface haze, even as sir said that initial learning curve and with excess surgical manipulations. So coming to the visual quality, so let me talk about the optical aberration. Definitely there is increase in the total higher order aberration, coma and spherical aberration, but still it is lesser compared to the LASIK. So if the patient is having a high refractive error, definitely there is going to be higher order aberration, followed by exaggerated wound healing response. So coming to the contrast sensitivity, according to our man Dr. Sri Ganesh, he has done a study. According to this study, shows that contrast sensitivity better in the postoperative period, even at a long-term follow-up. Coming to the corneal clarity, interface haze observed in the early postoperative period become almost insignificant after 1 year of surgery. What might be the reason for this delay in the corneal clarity? There might be some deposition of the debris in the interface because of this inflammatory response, excessive mechanical manipulation, and sometimes if you have a high energy level also, this might be the chances. So coming to the corneal curvature changes. See, as I said in previously, the sagittal curvature changes is better preserved in smile. So the corneal sphericity with a steeper center and with the flatter periphery is maintained when you are operating a myopic patient. So because of all these factors, definitely there will be a lesser induction of the spherical aberration. Coming to the physiological outcomes, normally in smile, the corneal sensation decreases after the surgery but recovers by around 3 to 6 months. Let me talk about the corneal biomechanical strength. In smile, there will be decrease in the corneal hysteresis and corneal resistance factor on the ocular response analyzer, which is lesser that compared to the LASIK. So smile has an advantage of preserving the strength of anterostroma compared to LASIK. This is the one point I always keep highlighting about the smile. So coming to the tear film changes, normally gradually it recovers with 80% of the cases being lubricated by giving the lubricating 6 months after the surgery. So which is minimal impact on the ocular surface. Because of the small incision, there is a lesser damage to the subbasal nerve layer, early stabilization of the T-BUD score, better OSDC score, and better post-op corneal sensitivity. So coming to the post-op challenges, most of the challenges already Professor Tithial said. So coming to the interface haze, the incidence is between 5.4 to 54%. The main pathophysiology I can quote here is because of the post-operative inflammation. But these are the few predisposing factors, especially high pulse energy, inexperienced surgeon. Sometimes even epithelial growth can cause even retreatment. So sometimes these interface haze, some of us may mistaken for DLK. So the prevention of this, you need to optimize your laser energy. Once you become the best, better to reduce your laser energy. And management, most of the cases, it's resolved spontaneously. Sometimes you may have to increase your topical steroid. So coming to the dry eye, the incidence of dry eye is between 3.2 to 32%. The predisposing factor patient, if is already having a pre-existing dry eye, so if your patient is having dry eye, better to treat the dry eye, you go ahead with the treatment. Or you can, if the patient is having dry eye, still you can, lot of medications available in the market to treat the dry eye. Most of the patients will be happy after the couple of months. So coming to the cap microstriae, this is very important. See, the incidence is 0.4 to 15%. Especially, it is more common in when you're treating a high refractive error and also in some of the in older patient. So as Dr. Rupal said that the prevention is gentle cap massage after the lenticle extraction is very, very important. So smile cap folds commonly present in a concentric circle pattern. When you compare in LASIK, it usually in a linear pattern. So normally in OCT, if you see micro distortion seen 88% of the case after smile, but it is clinically insignificant. Normally, these micro distortion reduced at 1 week, even remain stable thereafter. So once again, for this one, once again, gentle cap massage is very important. With you have to use the topical steroid. Coming to the epithelial ingrowth, once again, the incidence of epithelial ingrowth in smile is between 0.5 to 0.66%. The predisposing factor, patients with Bowman membrane disease, epithelial defect, even of course with the older patient, if the patient is having a diabetes, and when you're doing the enhancement procedure. So the prevention always, I feel, avoid excess intraoperative manipulation. And outcome, normally mild case have a good visual recovery. In the severe cases, normally patient may have gone for irregular astigmatism with a loss of best corrected visual acuity. So management, if it is in the periphery, observe for the progression, let us wait. If it is progression, intervention is necessary. In such cases, I think you may have to convert into flap, scrape this epithelium. See, in this case, sometimes what happens whenever there is any epithelial ingrowth, few of my friends, even I tried in one cases, you can even try with the Nd:YAG laser that clears the epithelial ingrowth. Otherwise, as I said, that you convert into a flap, then go underneath. If the epithelial ingrowth is more, then you have to convert into a flap. If it is in only bothering in the center, still you can open up the incision, go with the small dissector, try to scratch, give the wash. Most of the time it corrects. Oh, otherwise, you can try with the Nd:YAG laser capsulotomy. So coming to the undercorrection, of course, especially it can happen when you're treating a high myopia more than 6 diopters, astigmatism when you're treating around more than 3.5 to 4 diopters. Sometimes, of course, it can even happen with the inexperienced surgeon, even when you're treating a patient 35 years. So the always, as Manpreet said, that careful patient selection is very important. You can try the enhancement procedure with the PRK with MMC. Of course, secondary LASIK also you can do. You have got a circle pattern to for if you are having a residual power, and now they are even trying with the subcap lenticle extraction. Of course, outcome is always satisfactory. Patient will have a good vision. So coming to the irregular topography, the incidence is almost around 0.5 to 1%. The predisposing factor for irregular topography is mainly increased intraoperative manipulation, opaque bubble layer, low spot energy with clear spots. Once again, with the inexperienced surgeon and retained lenticule. So always, once again, I keep repeatedly avoid rough dissection and forceful lenticle extraction. So management, you can observe, or you can, if the still patient is having a complaint, then you can go ahead with the topo-guided PRK. So coming to the optical aberration, the incidence is around 0.2 to 0.4%. The predisposing factors are excessive intraoperative manipulation, retained lenticule, if decentered treatment, and epithelial ingrowth. So once again, avoid rough dissection and forceful dissection. So management, once again here, observation. If it is not corrected, then you can think about topo-guided PRK. Coming to the decentered treatment, the incidence is almost 90% within the 0.3 mm of visual axis. But what are the predisposing factor? Large angle cup, very important. Whatever, sometimes you try to dock, you cannot dock in the center. Of course, it can happen with the inexperienced surgeon. So very important, careful centration is very, very important during the docking, during the application of the suction. So once again here, observation, observe, management, observe, otherwise you can go ahead with the topo-guided PRK. Coming to the ectasia, I think reported in 2 cases so far. What are the causes? I think causes are, one is patient might be having because of the low residual bed thickness, high refractory error, even patient sometimes keratoconus might have missed. So once again, as Manpreet said, that careful selection of the patient is very, very important. If they're having, then you can go ahead with the CXL with the SMILE. If still, then you can think about any of the intracorneal stromal rings with CXL. So coming to my last slide, diffuse lamellar keratitis. The incidence is almost 1.6%. The predisposing factor, once again, interface debris, thin lenticule, larger lenticular diameter, surgeon inexperience, and high pulse energy. So these are the grading. These are the grading of diffuse lamellar keratitis. Grade 1 normally in-test topical steroid do well, localized, and grade 2 is diffuse collection of the cells. Grade 3 cells comes, and grade 4 is stromal melting. Only in the grade 1, 2 with the intense topical steroids, the patient do really well. Only with the grade 4, I think, along with the topical oral steroid, and also you may have to give the wash with the interface wash with the BSS. So prevention, once again, thorough irrigation interface if it has excessive manipulation, as Dr. Rupal said, optimal laser energy and smooth tissue handling. Always, once again, outcome will be very good after the surgery. So coming to the infective keratitis, the incidence is around 0.3%. Of course, might be mainly due to the contaminated surgical instrument and the environmental factor, and also periocular flora. So always you have to be very much careful while giving the wash before the SMILE procedure. So management, once again, irrigate the stromal pocket very well, topical concentrated antibiotic, and if nothing happens, then there are a lot of options to correct it. So in conclusion, SMILE is being preferred over the conventional flap-based procedure for the treatment of myopia and myopic astigmatism, owing to its precision, good mechanical stability, and better ocular surface. Greater technical skill is required and has a steeper learning curve compared to the other ablative procedure. Detailed knowledge of various complications, preventive measures and management is necessary, which is results in a better outcome. Thank you for the opportunity, Manpreet. I thank Titial sir for always including me in instruction course. Thank you, sir.